book is really brilliant, and it plays into my own personal love, which is history. I have a theater company that is dedicated to exploring plays about history and that connect to today's social political issues. And that's exactly what Ragtime does. Doctorow's book is this brilliant, crazy roller coaster ride through history. And what makes it so fun is that it's not just historical, it's historical fiction. And I'm fascinated by historical fiction because that seems like something we shouldn't want to have happen. Why fictionalize history? Again, back at my theater company, a question that's often asked of us is this true? Is this factual? And I think there's no such thing as factual. Factual is one person's perspective, is how one person wrote it down from one point of view. What's so lovely about this story is that it intertwines perspectives and ideas and characters. It makes for a more emotional connection to the history, and it gives you different perspectives on history and makes you stop thinking, oh, there's one way into history. No, there's millions upon millions of ways into history. What ultimately the show does, I think, is even though the historical characters are the small characters, what the fictional characters are trying to do is illuminate those characters, illuminate the actual history of 1902 to 1910, which is approximately when this took place. Ragtime music itself plays a huge part in the novel and, of course, in the creation of the musical. The novel itself is underscored in a way by the notion of ragtime, but you never hear it. In Ragtime, a theme is introduced, a second theme is introduced, a third theme is introduced. Then all those themes sort of begin working together, and you hear all of them playing off of each other. That's exactly how he wrote his story. But more than that, historically, ragtime is important in the period, especially in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's perhaps the first African-American music that makes it into popular music. It, in many ways, is the forefather of jazz music, and consequently the forefather of hip-hop music, of modern pop music in many ways as well. And what Scott Joplin and his contemporaries were writing was something brand new. And what the writers of the show do, and what Yale Doctorow wanted to suggest, was that this new music is what could break apart the old way and to get people to start coming back together in a new way. But what I find interesting is that it was going to take kind of breaking the old form in order for this new form to come. So in our design kind of process, we started thinking about this idea of breaking that old form of music and what that meant. And to us, it meant grand pianos and taking a grand piano and sort of exploding it all around the world. So we kind of took that idea literally and created an explosion in the theater. And so the play feels like it takes place mid-explosion. Ultimately, ragtime is so key because it changes minds and it changes hearts. The story of Ragtime is the story of three groups of people in America: immigrants, African Americans, and women. And I want this production to hopefully get people thinking about what kind of progress we've made as a country. This is 100 years after we're in 100 years after this story takes place. 100 years later, and in the story that we watch on stage, a woman, an African-American woman who has no weapons on her, is beaten to death on stage mistakenly. Another woman is kept in a kind of a very controlled relationship with a man and not given any freedom and not given her right to speak, or as she says, even to dream on her own. And immigrants are kept in a place where they not only they feel they were better off where they came from, and in a way they're kept so far down that they're almost pushed back to where they came from. And those three issues are the issues we're dealing with in our country right now more than ever. And so it makes ragtime so timely. It's almost scary how important it is to our time period, to our time right now.